Hello, hello. Thanks so much for tuning into Audio Unicorn. So today's topic, podcast monetization. And specifically what I would like to talk about is the podcast monetization that podcast hosts enable in the settings. So you can essentially, Spreaker is one of them. You can go into your settings inside your podcast host and enable monetization. And what the Spreaker then will do is insert ads at the start, mid, and end of your podcast. So effectively, you have ads added dynamically into your podcast feed, and then you get some money back. So is this whole thing worth it? Is it going to really make podcasters uber rich? And is it going to make a massive difference into everything we do as podcasters? So here it is. Okay, we have run a little test here at Music Radio Creative. We have a number of different podcasts. Obviously, Audio Unicorn is just one of them, but we have a number of different podcasts. And we thought we're going to enable the monetization and just see what kind of money it actually brings, and then crunch some numbers and just see how it could be reflected with different numbers effectively. At full transparency, our average monthly downloads are around 6,000. I know it's not huge, but we are a very niche production, so we don't worry necessarily about that. But 6,000 downloads bring on average, are you ready for this? My numbers say 20 cents a day in terms of ads revenue. So that translates to just about $10 a month if you have 10,000 downloads. So is it really that much? Well, it isn't. 10,000 downloads is a decent amount, I would say. But $10, well, is it going to really make it or break it for you? Probably isn't. If you have 100,000 downloads, that will just come to under $100. It starts to get bigger, but then I would expect that if you have 100,000 downloads, you're already monetizing the show in different ways. And I'm going to put some arguments, I guess, against using that option in your podcast first, and then we will move from there. So first of all, I personally think that especially if you are just starting your podcast, so if your numbers haven't really reached anything high just yet, why to add the ads to the podcast? It's not going to make any monetary difference to you. It's going to be barely noticeable, and potentially it reduces the experience of a listener. So maybe drop it. Second of all, if you have decent amount of downloads, so say if you have 100,000 downloads, you can likely negotiate a much better sponsorship deal and much more on target directly with a company that would be interested in promoting on your show. 100,000 downloads is a lot to speak about, and I think it could bring some decent revenue directly to you. Don't forget that if you are enabling monetization from your podcast host, you are effectively giving a massive cut to a podcast host, because they charge the companies that they operate through, and they give you just a tiny little cut at the end of it. So don't forget about that. And once again, keep in mind the experience of your listener. You know, the obvious worry is how on target are the ads going to be? Are they going to really enhance the listening experience? I would like to think that podcast hosts will start working on algorithms that will enable, kind of relevant ads going on air. I think they already do, but still, you as a podcast host don't really have a fine grain kind of control over what ad is going to be played on a podcast. So it's kind of leaving you open and vulnerable to many different from many different angles, and I think it's worth for you to bear that in mind. But I would assume that they will be very similar. I don't think there will be huge discrepancies in terms of how much they pay. In terms of other podcast hosts, we also have Libsyn, who allows you to opt in into advertising platform that they have and try to monetize content through there. There is also Podbean, who offers that too. I also understand that they allow to dynamically insert ads by yourself, which I think is a fantastic feature. I have not seen many podcast hosts that offer that. So effectively, the way it would work, if you have a sponsor for your show, you could add your own ads and run them dynamically through all of your episodes instead of having to edit every single episode and add the ad through. Now, this can be potentially, well, I think this still is a very much needed feature that really hopefully will be added by all the main hosts such as Libsyn, Blueberry and Spreaker as we go into the future. Do bear in mind it competes with their idea of monetization, so I'm not sure how keen they will be able to, they will want to introduce this moving forward. I'm hoping they will, because it is a great feature. Here at Music Radio Creative, we produce many shows, and we have come across, some episodes where a podcaster has 100 episodes and a sponsor is there, but they want to be included in all the episodes to get the maximum exposure. So we have to go back in and edit all 100 shows in order to enable that sponsor in. And then we have to edit it back out when the sponsor drops out or the new sponsor comes in. So as you can see, it's quite a time-consuming operation and a big pain that potentially is waiting to be solved. So hopefully something will come through there. So Podbean, as I say, it is monetization of their own ad platform, but also they enable you to insert your own ads. Then we also have Spreaker, as I've mentioned, who do have their own ad network that you can opt into. So I guess similar to Libsyn in that regard. So do take it very lightly. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you rush into it and you expect to make megabucks. As I say, 10,000 downloads is roughly going to bring $10 every month. That's really not much. And I think that with that amount of listeners, you can potentially work on your own marketing techniques to monetize it much better and much more effectively and much more user-friendly. Definitely think twice before clicking that enable button and make sure it is the right thing for you and for your audience. Hope this is helpful. Now, just a quick update about Audio Unicorn itself. I have been, as I've mentioned before, delving head, shoulders, knees, all into podcast production, which I'm actually finding I'm really enjoying. And I think I enjoy it much more than any other aspect of production I've been taking on so far. So I think that this is so far where my Audio Unicorn abilities are enhancing, and I'm very much enjoying it. So please stay tuned in. Thank you so much for watching.